something wrong? You're awfully quiet. Should I get someone else to handle your training?
No, please. I'm very happy to have you as an instructor.
My name's Barbara, by the way. I think that you and I have a fun week ahead of us.
Being thrown into a foreign land with no memories except his name, Haruhiro embarks on a journey as an adventurer through Grimgar. Battling through adversity, Haruhiro begins to adapt to his new lifestyle until things take a turn for the worse. With everything they thought to have known being thrown out the window, Haruhiro and his party embark on an adventure like no other. Welcome to Grimgar, Ashes and Illusions, where we are first introduced to a group of adventurers in the heat of battle. The brown-haired man introduces himself as Haruhiro, and he falls down from an incoming goblin. The other members of the party also try to subdue the goblin until it rushes towards the mage. After being knocked down, the healer helps her recover and the others regroup. The leader of the group gives them all words of encouragement, urging them to not give up. While battling, Haruhiro notices that despite the goblins being the weakest creatures, they are struggling with them. Following this, he has a dream telling him to wake up, hinting that there may be something waiting for him. When Haruhiro opens his eyes, he is greeted by his best friend and fellow adventurer, Ranta. A man then walks into their room and introduces himself as Minato, a fellow adventurer. Ranta then tells Haruhiro to get up or else there won't be any food left for him. Minato goes back to the kitchen and tells the others to prepare the rest of the food. After doing so, they all sit down in a circle and enjoy their on-the-road meal. Minato reveals he can use light magic to heal any wounds they may have. After confirming the group's health, Minato suggests they go back into the forest. While they were eating, someone said the word game, and this made all the adventurers feel uneasy. Haruhiro explains that when he first arrived in this magical world, he was clueless on what to do. Other than the voice telling him to awaken, he has no past memories of his life. When he first woke up, he was greeted by the other people who were as clueless of their situation as Haruhiro. Haruhiro walks around looking at all of the people in this new land, and realizes he has no clue who anybody is. A girl then breaks the silence between the group, asking if they have any clue where they are. One of the men tells them some knights can guide them to a place they can get information. After being guided to a local bar, the bartender introduces himself as Brittany, the leader of the Red Moon Reserves. Before we continue, let's take a moment to answer the question of the day. If you were thrown into a new world without any memories, would you embark on the path to becoming a hero? Comment down below for a chance to be shouted out in the next video. Now back to the recap. A white-haired man then introduces himself as Renji and asks Brittany to explain what is going on. Brittany then approaches him swiftly and points a dagger at his throat. Renji doesn't back down, however, and shows his resolve, causing Brittany to respect him. Brittany then pulls out a bag of coins and presents it to the group along with an official badge proving their identity. Brittany tells them they need it if they don't want to die, this world being filled with monsters. Brittany tells the group that whenever they defeat a monster, they take the loot from it and present it to him for some coin. Although he has no main goal for the group to achieve, he gives them words of advice on how to survive. He tells them they will all be volunteer soldiers, and they are going to fight monsters to earn a living. These events lead up to Haruhiro's current situation, being teamed up with the other adventurers. Haruhiro explains that Renji formed his own party and has had massive luck at defeating monsters. The next day, Ranta complains for having to eat berries and such every day, not having eaten meat since he arrived. Ranta tells them in the future he will be one of the strongest and be able to eat as much meat as he wants. Haruhiro explains to us that he joined this group because it was on the weaker side, so he fits in. In order to officially kill and sell monster parts, you have to be a part of a guild. Haruhiro then heads into the Thief Guild to try and learn their techniques. After going inside, he is strangled by a woman who asks why he wants his first class as a thief. She releases him after he explains why he has arrived, to which she tells him to report back in 7 days. The woman introduces herself as Barbara, the leader of the Thief Guild. Haruhiro reveals his feelings towards Barbara, her being his ideal woman. After days of training, Haruhiro completes his training and rejoins with his party. With every member having a different class, it seems they have every tactic covered. Following this, a girl named Yumi, a member of the party group, asks what their next plan is. Despite being an archer, Yumi struggles to hit her shots, nailing Ranta in the butt during the last mission. Ranta gets angry at her and calls her flat-chested, telling her to be more like Shihoru. After hearing Ranta talk about her, Haruhiro looks over at Shihoru with lustful eyes. Ranta continues to tell the others that she can't hide her body from her, him having a skill to see the beauty in girls. Shihoru feels bad for Yume and tells them she is simply just fat. Haruhiro tells Ranta she is fat, but Ranta continues to press her. Yume eventually goes behind Shihoru and protects her, turning Ranta on. Minato then tells them to stop fighting and get a move on. They march forward, eventually arriving at a beautiful waterfall occupied by 4 goblins. After observing the food they are eating, Yume questions Minato's leadership. The group then all think to themselves how nice it would be if they actually earned a living and were able to buy meat. Haruhiro, on the other hand, is enjoying his new lifestyle, for it is filled with adventure. Later that night, Haruhiro notices Ranta missing, so he decides to investigate. After stepping outside, he realizes how cold it is and is approached by Minato. Minato tells him that he was out drinking, inviting him to come next time. Minato reveals he was gathering information at the tavern, not just fooling around. He tells Haruhiro that he has gotten used to his new lifestyle, despite still being unsure of it. Minato explains to Haruhiro that after going to the tavern, he learned of a new spot to hunt monsters. Haruhiro tells him to invite him next time he goes drinking. He never had a drink in his life. Minato then asks Haruhiro about the Thief Guild, asking how difficult his training was. The two continue to talk about their travels through far as if they are best friends from a past life. Minato reveals to Haruhiro that there is a lot of pressure guiding the group around. Haruhiro assures he is doing a good job so far, despite not knowing where they are. Haruhiro looks into the red moon and recognizes that they are definitely in a different world than he was used to. The next day, Haruhiro stalks out a goblin until he is approached by Yumi, hoping to get in on the spoils. Haruhiro then reports this to the rest of the group, and they all prepare to take down the single goblin. Haruhiro then prepares to use his thief techniques, but Ranta runs out and baits the goblin. Haruhiro notices him swinging his sword around like a goblin and ends up tripping. He falls down the cliff and is face to face with the goblin. Despite using an attack on it, the goblin emerges uninjured. The rest of the group then comes out and starts attacking the goblin as a group. With a full party and just one goblin, it makes you wonder how they are so weak. Ranta eventually lands a hit on the goblin, forcing it to call out to its brethren. Ranta then stops it from screaming any further, rushing in for the kill on the goblin. The rest of the group then joins in but continues to struggle to even injure the single goblin. Haruhiro goes in for an attack, but the goblin throws his sword at him, impaling his shoulder. The goblin then jumps on Haruhiro, and he lands a hit to its head. Ranta joins in and helps take down the goblin for good. Following this, Minato goes and heals Haruhiro, seeing him bleeding from the shoulder. Ranta, on the other hand, scavenges the goblin's body, looking for loot. The goblin then gets up and grabs the sword, hoping to run away. Ranta chases him down and frantically stabs it until the goblin stops moving. After dealing the final blow, Ranta begins to cry after realizing what he did, killing the goblin. His emotions also seem to affect the others, giving them weary faces. Following this, they take the goblin and his loot to a merchant where he offers them 1 silver coin. They take his offer and are finally able to relax after earning some money. Minato notices their exhaustion and wishes the group off. Ranta, on the other hand, is still in his feelings after seeing the goblin try and fight for its life. Haruhiro decides to venture through the city with a smile after finally having some money to his name. He watches as all the different people in the city do their own things, some being happy, some being sad. Ranta, on the other hand, spent his recently earned money on some meat. Yumi, on the other hand, is seen trying to get Shihoru to wear something lewd. With every member of the party doing their own thing, it feels they are adapted to their new lifestyle. Minato in particular lays down under the sun, enjoying the fresh air. The day eventually comes to an end, and the group wraps up their various tasks. Minato decides to go spit some game on Shihoru, grabbing the attention of Yumi. Eventually, Haruhiro goes and talks to Ranta about his feelings. He asks him if he is doing a round, to which Ranta explains his joy for getting his first kill. Ranta explains to Haruhiro that he is enjoying this new life despite having no memories of his past life. The rest of the group end up meeting up until Yume breaks the tension, scaring Ranta. They all take a moment to look off into the sunset and enjoy their time together. Later that night, Haruhiro asks Minato if he is awake, having some questions for him. When he tries to ask him a question, he is unable to convey his feelings. Before he goes to sleep, Haruhiro notices Ranta getting out of bed. He asks where he is going to, which Ranta explains he will go and peep on the girls taking a bath. This grabs the rest of the guys' attention, causing them to talk further about the girls. Ranta tells them that he is the shameless king, not caring whether he gets caught peeping or not. Haruhiro attempts to stop him, but Ranta rushes in anyways, causing the girls to beat him to a pulp. Later that week, Haruhiro assists a fellow party member, Maguzo, cook some breakfast for the group. While cooking, Haruhiro asks why he always cooks for others and whether he likes to cook or not. Maguzo explains to Haruhiro that he likes to cook for everyone, making everyone happy in the morning. Haruhiro tells him he will go get everyone, so Maguzo tries his stew to ensure the taste. The girls finally decide to talk to Ranta and the others again, demanding an apology from them. Ranta tries to plead his case, telling her that there is nothing wrong with peeping on them. Ranta asks Yuma why she wore a towel, wishing he could have seen more of her. Ranta then gets embarrassed and tries to plead his case, hoping to get out of it unharmed. Yuma doesn't take this lightly, however, running to his side and slapping him silly. During their next monster hunt, the tension still sits within the group, making it hard to focus. After further investigation of the area, Haruhiro discovers fresh tracks from a monster. They decide to search the area a bit more, and during their walk, Haruhiro apologizes on behalf of Ranta. Eventually, Yume starts to warm up to the others again, telling Haruhiro she accepts his apology. They get back with the group where they head back into town. Being unable to find any goblins, the group went countless nights without food or shelter. Haruhiro explains that even his clothes would get torn, and he would be unable to replace them. Haruhiro continues to talk about his struggles, being so poor he can't even afford new underwear. While in there, Shihoru comes in after, revealing she has been doing the same thing he has. Haruhiro then spies on her, but when he turns around, he is discovered by Yum. She wishes him off, and Haruhiro walks away, thinking if he should miss this opportunity. While walking back, he stumbles upon Ranta, who is suspicious of him. Ranta tells him that he was going to peek in the room, hoping the girls were there. Haruhiro lies and tells him he just left the room, not wanting to repeat what happened last time when Ranta peeked on them. After some adventuring, they arrive at an old abandoned city filled with various creatures. One of these monsters is a goblin, discovered by Haruhiro. He runs back and the group plan their attack on the goblin, hoping to end it quickly. Ranta starts their attack by stabbing it, and Minato helps by finishing it off. After looting the body, they find their biggest haul of loot yet. Minato tells them, although today might have been easy, they can't start getting an ego. Ranta tells him he needs to relax, offering a celebration tonight with their winnings. They continue to look around the town, but are unable to find any more goblins to loot. That night, they celebrated enough to prepare to go out and hunt goblins the next day. Over time, the party's skills increased, and they started taking down more goblins at a time. They venture through various cities until Haruhiro decides to finally invest in some new clothes. After getting his new underwear, Haruhiro celebrates his night by eating some noodles. Minato, on the other hand, approaches the girls, but Shihoru appears super shy in front of him. After getting back to their base, Haruhiro shows off a new knife he bought with his winnings. Ranta and Maguzo, on the other hand, went shopping for food. After seeing everyone spend their money, Minato suggests to the guys that they should invest in themselves and get a new skill. Ranta swings his sword around and claims he doesn't need a new skill. The girls, on the other hand, talk about getting new clothes if they perform well. While talking, Shihoru considers putting on a hair clip, causing Yume to ask why she has been avoiding the guys. Shihoru expresses her shyness, telling Yume she will try her best to talk with them. Minato, on the contrary, decides to spend his evening writing his adventures in a book. Haruhiro notices this and feels compelled to thank Minato for all of the help he has done for him. Minato tells him that he is the luckiest for having such great friends around him. Haruhiro takes his compliment, but explains to him that if he wasn't around, they probably would be dead by now. Haruhiro then asks Minato why he decides to join their party, him having the ability to join anyone. Minato conveys to Haruhiro even he gets nervous talking to new people. He tells Haruhiro their group is filled with friends that have shaped him into the leader he is. Haruhiro tells us that on the 25th day in the New World, he has started to finally be accustomed to the red moon. One night, while running errands, Shihoru and Minato find themselves with some alone time. Minato tells her to stop for a moment, and he goes to feel the birds. He asks if she wants to try it, but Shihoru tells him she doesn't want to get hurt. Minato assures her the birds are safe, so she walks over to go and feed one. One of the birds jumps at her and causes her to fall to the ground. Minato attempts to save her, but he just falls on top of her, making him seem a little silly. Over time, more animals continue to approach Minato, and he decides to feed them. Minato eventually uses all of their food, so he tells Shihoru it's time to head back. The next day, they head into town and get some new skills. Following this, they decide to try them out. Ranta getting a new sword skill, making killing goblins much easier. Shihoru tells us everyone in the party has gotten a new skill, including himself. He purchases the skill Backstab, giving him the chance to deliver the final kill to the goblin. Shihoru, on the other hand, purchased a new elemental spell, giving her access to the shadow element. Minato, on the other hand, purchased a simple smash attack. Mogzuko, however, bought a skill where he can easily knock goblins to their knees, giving Ranta easy kills on goblins. After dealing with all of the monsters, Shihoru reveals that Ranta has a demon within him that he needs to feed. With the more monsters he kills, the stronger his demon gets, thus making him stronger. Having dealt with the monsters, Yuma prays, thanking her god for blessing them with a good haul of loot. Yuma tells the group that she dreams of riding on the back of her god, it being a deer. Yuma continues to ramble on about how much she loves this being until Ranta tells her to stop yapping. Minato notices how close they have become, making them stronger together. When they first arrived, the party struggled with even one goblin, now they can easily handle 3. Minato tells the members that each of them has their own role in the party. He tells Ranta that he is good at finishing monsters, to which Yuma criticizes him. Minato jumps in and tells Yumi out of everyone she does the most. He then moves on to Shihoru and tries to think of something to compliment her on. After having to think about it, he tells her she is good at magic and helps defeat the goblins. Haruhiro looks at him hoping for a compliment, but he is ignored. The group finishes talking and decides to venture into their city further to find more goblins. Upon investigating, Haruhiro notices an arrow flying at Manato's direction, so he takes the hit for him. The goblin then shoots out his leg as well, making Haruhiro completely immobile. Minato goes to heal him, but a giant goblin emerges, causing the group to come save them. They start fighting this huge goblin, but struggle to deal much damage. They decide to relocate in an attempt to get the advantage, but Minato is shot in the back while running away. For some reason, Minato doesn't react, and tells the others he is completely fine. After escaping, Minato falls to the ground covered in blood, alerting the others of his condition. They rush to his side trying to help him, but Minato just apologizes for letting them down. He tells Haruhiro he needs to take over now, closing his eyes for the last time. Haruhiro orders the others to cover his wound, and they do so, then rush to a church. Here Haruhiro bows down to the man within, and asks if he can save Minato. The old man inspects him, but tells Haruhiro no one can bring back the dead. The group starts to freak out, blaming the old man for not being able to save Minato. Haruhiro specifically starts to tell the others that if they can just have Minato back, they can continue how they have. The old man tells the others that they need to hold a proper burial for him. Shihoru in particular is unable to deal with this news, and she falls to the ground panting. The old man tells Haruhiro if they don't have the money to pay for his funeral, he will. Haruhiro tells the old man that Minato is their friend, so they would rely on him. Shihoru begins to weep, letting out her pent-up feelings around Minato. The group's overall demeanor begins to decline with the death of their leader, everyone dealing with it in their own way. They eventually are able to move forward and hold a funeral for Minato, still devastated by it all. After holding the funeral and paying for all the various things, they are left with no more money. Ranta decides to head out on his own and leave the group behind. He tells the others that he isn't going to waste his life sitting around doing nothing. This angers Yuma, and she goes and slaps him while crying. Ranta stops for a moment to think about his actions, but ends up leaving anyway. Haruhiro, on the other hand, is still trying to figure out what to do now without Minato. Like most men in sorrow, he goes to a bar where he finds Ranta doing the same. They talk about how Minato used to come to this spot, still getting over his loss. The waitress arrives and gives the 3 their drinks, giving Ranta the courage to open up. He tells them he doesn't care about being an adventurer, and he will do something else. Haruhiro shouts at him for wanting to give up, but Ranta doesn't back down. The two continue to argue until Ranta yells loud enough to attract everyone's attention. Moguzo then stands up and shouts at the two of them, telling them not to fight. Moguzo tells the others they need to find something to do now that Minato is gone. Haruhiro tells Ranta he should continue to make money as an adventurer and not give up. Then suddenly a man approaches, introducing himself as Kikawa, telling the group he hasn't seen them in a long time. He acts all jolly to the group, not catching on to their current mood. Ranta explains that Minato died the other day and tells him to calm down. Kikawa explains that he joined a new party and is making tons of money with them. He offers to let them join his party, knowing that Minato was their leader. Kikawa tells the others not to be too sad by his death, priests usually being the first ones to die. They realize that now they have no priest, it would be difficult to move forward as a party. Kikawa tells them that he has tons of connections, so they don't need to worry about a new priest. The next day, Ranta introduces the new priest, Mary, to the others. Mary asks Haruhiro what their plan is, him being the new leader of the group. Haruhiro reveals they are going to hunt more goblins, and Mary seems rather disappointed. The group eventually gets a move on, and starts heading towards the old city with goblins. Later that night, Ranta gets drunk and rambles on about how cute Mary is. Haruhiro, on the other hand, remembers how bad Mary was in their ventures earlier that day. When they tried to get her to fight with them, she preferred to hide in a corner and do nothing. Not only did she not want to fight, but she was rude to everyone other than Haruhiro. Ranta tells the others that despite her cuteness, she really ticks him off. Although she is a little rough around the edges, the group decides it's better to at least have a priest. Ranta remembers when he was injured during the day, and she refused to heal him, saying it was pointless. The group wonders if they will be okay as things are, not having Minato. Haruhiro thinks but is interrupted when he sees Renji walk into the tavern. Despite starting at the same time, Renji has accomplished much more, wearing plated armor. He approaches Haruhiro and drops a gold coin on the table, telling him it's a gift. Haruhiro, however, doesn't want to take his pity, so he gives the coin back. Renji accepts it and walks away, making Ranta go on a rant about how much he just gave away. Haruhiro tells the others that their issue isn't money, it's their teamwork. He explains that they haven't talked with the girls at all since Minato died. Later that night, Haruhiro decides to take action and go talk to Yumi. He asks her if they are angry at him for bringing in Mary without asking them. He apologizes for rushing things, knowing it was too soon to get a new priest. Yume rushes to him and tells him he doesn't understand their feelings at all. Haruhiro tells them that he isn't good with words, not knowing how to comfort them. Yume tells him it's not his fault for their separation, they just haven't expressed their feelings. Haruhiro remembers that Minato wasn't the only aspect of their party, they all had their own strengths. Haruhiro realizes that to move forward they all need to do their own roles and move past Manato's death. Haruhiro finally expresses his emotions, letting out a storm of tears for Minato. The two share a moment of sadness, making them grow closer. Haruhiro holds Yume in his hands and she expresses her feelings for him. Yume tells him that it is comforting to be held in his hands. The both of them tell each other they will try their hardest, but are interrupted by Shihoru. Haruhiro notices her peeking through the window, causing her to misinterpret the situation. The next morning, Shihoru goes to their room and apologizes to Haruhiro. She tells him she thought they were in a relationship and this spikes Ranta's interest. He runs over asking who is in a relationship and Yume explains it. She tells him that Haruhiro was hugging her tightly while crying last night. He misinterprets this and gets angry at Haruhiro for hiding their relationship. Being up, they all decide to go outside and wait for Maguzo to cook them breakfast, where Haruhiro clears the air. He explains the situation and Ranta seems a bit disappointed, hoping there was love in the air. Maguzo finishes breakfast and presents it to them all, filling them up. Ranta then says there is something wrong with the food, and this causes Maguzo to roast him back. They then head out to fight for the day, where they find Mary waiting for their arrival. She acts a bit more friendly today, talking with the others. They ask her questions and get no answers, but at least she is talking to them. They arrive in the old city and prepare their ambush on the nearby goblins. Ranta and Maguzo run out first, giving the others to deal major damage. Maguzo gets injured, and Mary urges him to keep fighting. He pushes past his limits and slays the goblin in front of him. Haruhiro, on the other hand, fights his own goblin, dealing with it easily. After finishing the goblins, Mary walks over and actually heals someone. She casts her spell and fixes Maguzo's injury, then tells Ranta he can put up with his injury. Later that day, they question why she only decides to heal specific wounds, and after the battles. Haruhiro shares with her how Minato, their past priest, would always heal their injuries and keep them in top shape. Mary tells him the way she contributes is totally fine, her not seeing an issue with it. Haruhiro tries to convince her to change, but Mary proposes to leave if she doesn't like how she works. Haruhiro walks away defeated after being unable to change Mary. Ranta decides to take Yume and Shihoru to the tavern, where they see Mary come in as well. They look at her and she looks back, but Mary just walks over to the bar. Ranta asks the other girls why Mary can't just follow them around and has to be so stuck up. Yume tries to explain it to him, but their attention is switched after seeing someone talk to Mary. They see a leader of a distinguished party talk to her and wonder what they are conversing about. Later that night, Haruhiro thinks about his role within the party. Minato tells him he entrusted it to him. He wonders whether he can bear the burden of being the leader and whether he has what it takes. While thinking, Minato appears before him, telling him he has what it takes. Haruhiro tells Minato he can't do it, however, to which Minato asks him what they will do then. He convinces him to take on the role and guide the party to a new path. They go out and fight more goblins the next day, hoping to earn some coin. With a combined attack between Maguzo and Haruhiro, goblins are easy pickings for them nowadays. After knocking a goblin off the edge, Haruhiro sees Mary praying over it. He realizes he doesn't know anything about her. Haruhiro tells Maguzo that if they continue to fight and defeat goblins, then they can upgrade their gear and not have to worry about dying. Suddenly Ranta stops them and reveals a hidden goblin. He runs over and protects Mary, then he tells her to stop just standing around. Mary then proceeds to impale a goblin charging toward Ranta, showing off her skills in the process. They eventually arrive back to their town, and Haruhiro attempts to convince Mary to hang out with them. He tries to think what to ask her to do, knowing she will most likely turn them down. He settles on asking her to eat with them, however Mary denies his request. She denies him formally, and this sparks Haruhiro to ask why she is like this. Mary doesn't answer him, however, leaving without another word. As she walks away, Haruhiro realizes that she is slowly starting to get closer to their party. He then tells the others he is going to visit the man who talked to her the other day, hoping to gather information about her. Upon arriving at the usual tavern, he asks the man what he knows about Mary. He tells them a man named Hayashi would be better to talk to. Then a guard behind them turns around and introduces himself as a former member of Mary's party. He starts his story by telling them of his party members, Mary being their main priest. At first everything was smooth, but when they eventually went to hunt stronger enemies, they realized how much pressure they were putting on Mary. She used to be cheerful and always helpful, but over time, with the others getting constantly injured, she was stressed. After becoming strong enough to hold their own, they started to forget how much they relied on Mary. He explains the party's members were after a goal of clearing an area, so they rushed through the lands. They eventually arrived on an enemy too strong and they lost multiple members of their party. He remembers calling out for Mary to heal them, but she was out of magic. Hayashi explains that Mary probably doesn't use her magic in case of a situation like that one, where she needs to be able to heal others.